Hey, shalom to the hopeful elect. First and foremost, I'd like to give all honor, praises, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Rachakodash. Double honors to the apostles, bishops, and elders at Great Millstone who teach the truth and rule well. This is the brother Yatab Yahweh coming back from the GMS SF Bay Area camp. I got a quick lesson today. All right, Lord's will is edifying. Just going into this article a little bit, I came across this article, all right, and it really shows, all right, the part of the blessings that Esau has, all right, going into, being in control, being in power right now. He has the blessing to sway the people's minds. As you go into the word government, all right, it means basically to control the mind. And, one of the ways he does that by way of his witchcraft, going into, we're going to read a little bit of it, but, like the propaganda that he pushes, all right, which really shows you what type of war we're in. All right, it's a mental war. All right, and it just shows you that we really need Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai, and the only way out, all right, is to have this understanding and know what's coming. All right, and it all comes by way of Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai. But this is data September 14, 2025 from Blazing Press, and this is Cognitive Warfare, NATO, a battle for the brain. It says cognitive warfare represents a new dimension in modern conflict, targeting human cognition to influence, disrupt, or control decision-making processes. Unlike traditional warfare, CW operates subtly, exploiting psychological and neurological vulnerabilities to achieve strategic goals without kinetic engagement. It leverages disinformation, propaganda, and advanced technologies to manipulate perceptions and behaviors on a global scale. And this is exactly what we see being done by Esau. All right, that's why there's so much information going out and a lot of disinformation, misinformation, a lot of psyops, a lot of things, really hearkening on people's emotions. All right, and the internet, it's that double-edged sword, because there is a lot of information, but there is a way to like Esau has a way to manipulate that information, okay, and use it to as a form of control. And that's why we see a lot of these people bugging out, which again, it all plays into prophecy. All right, this is all by way of Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai, but it shows the little ins and outs of how it's being done. And really, this is high level witchcraft, okay? To be able to control somebody's emotions, to be able to control their behavior just by pushing out certain propaganda, all right, certain things that they see on the internet, on the TV, all right. You have this whole focus on the two-party system, or two thought processes over here in America, the conservatives or the liberals or the left or the right, Democrats, Republicans. That's all by design, all right. But here it is when you go into the meaty part of what's really going on and who, behind the scenes and what they really want. It has bipartisan support, but people focus on the little things that, that play on the emotions, and so do these politicians. All right. But it says CW, which is cognitive warfare, focuses on altering cognition, how the brain processes information. While information cyber warfare targets data integrity or systems, CW aims to distort reality, perception, induce cognitive biases, and saturate attention. Exploits neuroscience, cognitive biases, and psychological stressors to weaken adversaries. Combines psychological operations, psyops, and cyber operations to create systemic societal disruptions. I know there's a lot of big words, but basically it goes into, all right, what this article is talking about, how all these psychological operations, how the media is able to put things together, and Esau being able to put basically actors on a stage and make media or certain videos, certain things that come out look like something's happening when really it's all been controlled. All right, it's all just an act. It's a theater. All right, but what does it do? It plays on the people's emotions to where it has them thinking and doing the things that they want them to do. Okay, It says examines human-machine interactions and their psychological impacts, crucial for understanding vulnerabilities in hyper-connected environments. Nanotechnology, biotechnology, information technology, and cognitive sciences are converging to enhance human capabilities, e.g., augmented soldiers, and develop neuroweapons. Neuroscience is used to optimize soldier performance, manipulate emotions and decision making, and develop non-lethal weapons. Which this is going into Esau's, um, his little weapons that he has. Well, I mean, we go into it all the time. These bio weapons. All right, these super soldiers. Okay, but let me continue reading. It says program exemplifies efforts to dominate the cognitive domain. Neuroweapons fall outside existing treaties, biological, chemical, raising concerns about unregulated escalation. CW targets individuals and societies, requiring a whole of government approach. NATO integrates social sciences, psychology, and anthropology with technologies to counter cognitive threats. Future conflicts will hinge on controlling narratives and perceptions. The battlefield is and always will always be within the mind, with both seen and unseen enemies, and this is what's going on as we speak. All right, this like they say, it's not a kinetic engagement, meaning it's not hand to hand, it's not fighting, it's not physical, everything is mental. All right, and this is again one of the blessings of Esau, to be able to use this is part of his sword, to go into this type of warfare of the brain, of the mind. All right, but see, this is why it's so important, to get the understanding of what's going on, and ultimately all that comes by way of Yahweh Shem Shai. All right, now let me start with this, Ephesians 6 and 12. It says, for we wrestle not against flesh, or actually let me start at 10. It says the armor of the Most High. It says, finally, my brethren, be strong in the Lord and the power of his might. Put on the whole armor of the Most High, that ye may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. And this is, again, part of his wiles, to be able to push out a narrative to control people's minds. That's a wile of the devil. Okay. It says, for we wrestle not against flesh and blood. Okay. It's that kinetic engagement, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. And this is high level, witchcraft. It's demonic. Okay, we go into it all the time. You have these elites doing these seances. Okay, you got different enchantments going on. You got these think tanks that Esau be cooking up, to come up with these weird diversions. Which, what do? They sway the people's mind. All right, you watch that movie, not movie, but it's a series. Utopia goes into it. There's a whole bunch of actors. They're all set up to do these things. But again, that's a form of witchcraft. All right. It says, wherefore take unto you the whole armor. So again, the war that we're in is a high level war, and it's specifically over our minds, which is going to get physical. We understand the persecution's coming. All right. We understand Esau is just going to come down with great wrath. So he's going to lose it. But, this is a form of his war, this witchcraft. This enchantment, these psyops, this cognitive warfare. Okay, it says, wherefore take unto you the whole armor of the Most High, that ye may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all to stand. So this is why the scriptures say, seek ye out of the book of the Lord and read. All right, with all thy getting, get understanding. Okay, a knowledge and wisdom shall be the stability of thy times, and strength of salvation. The fear of the Lord is his treasures. Okay, because when you understand what's going on, these things can't affect you. When you know the weapons of the devil, all right, when you know the weapons of the wicked, all right, you're able to withstand them. And again, this all comes by way of the true knowledge and wisdom of Yahweh Bashim Shai. To be able to go into these things, to be able to have the wisdom to see, the different, symbols that he uses, to see how he puts all these things together to, again, control a narrative, to get the people to think a certain way. I mean, just with this, this Captain Kirk thing going on, all right, you're seeing how, people are being controlled emotionally. All right, which is a big psyop, and you see a lot of a lot of things are being exposed, about the so-called shooter who they have, and the gun being found, but when the dude was jumping off, he had no gun, or it was already broken down, but supposedly found it intact. There's a lot of crazy things. Going into the guy, I forgot his name. He was one of the politicians, but I think he was the mayor or the governor of that city or state of Ohio. But he was talking about he was praying for 33 hours. His CK's wife wearing the rings and having a weird, creepy speech. It's just a whole bunch of psyop going on. But what is it doing? It's further playing into the divide. All right. And if you're not in the understanding, or you haven't gotten the knowledge and wisdom, you have no idea what's going on. You're literally crying for this man, or you're cheering it on, but you have no idea what's really happening behind the scenes. All right, this is all going into his plan. All right, to push ultimately that MOTB. It all plays in the chaos. It all plays into the system that they want to implement. All right, to ultimately fulfill their new world order. But again, if you don't have the understanding, all right, you don't know what's going on, then you've already lost the battle. You lost the mental war, the cognitive war. Okay? This is 2 Corinthians 4 and 3. Actually, before I get that, let me jump over here. Micah 2 and 1, it says, woe to them that devise iniquity. All right? Woe, meaning destruction. And to devise these different operations, that's iniquity. To devise this whole propaganda machine by way of the mainstream media, hey, that's iniquity. It says, to make people do the bugged out things, or to think the bugged out way, or to worship the bugged out, things that are worshipped. That's having people sin. All right, but that's the iniquity that the devil devises. All right, it says, and work evil upon their beds when the morning is light, they practice it, because it is in the power of their hand. And see, again, this goes into the blessing of Esau, and him having full control. All right, Job 9:24. Okay, full control as given that rulership position by Yahweh Shem El Shai right now. They have the power to do these things. All right, to be able to control the media, to be able to set up these different psyops to make them look real. All right, whether it was real or not, hey, there's plenty of accounts of multiple different psyops that have happened and that continue to happen to make people think and do certain things. All right. It says, when the morning is light, they practice it, because it is in the power of their hand. And again, this is the power this is part of the power that they have, is to be able to control their minds. This is the government. All right. This is the government, that mind control that the Lord has set up, all right, being at the end. Okay, and again, see, this is why the majority of our people can't understand what's going on. They've been blinded, all right, and that's also by way of prophecy, but they're being controlled. Their minds are being controlled. All right, 2 Corinthians 4:3, it says, but if our gospel be hid, it is hid to them that are lost, and see, they're lost. They've already lost the cognitive warfare. They have no idea that they're in a war. They believe that they can keep voting. All right, they believe that their politicians aren't bought or paid for. Their politicians aren't actors. They believe that the president is the highest form of authority, when the elites are that authority, and they don't believe that there's all these different seances going on, these rituals. They don't believe in witchcraft, but that's exactly what's going on. And this is a form of it. All right. It says, but if our gospel be hid, is hid to them that are lost. And, this is what we push by way of our apostles and elders on down, which is the same testimony of Yahweh Shai, the spirit of prophecy, the good news of the kingdom. All right. Hey, this man going down, this witchcraft not having any control over us. All right. A kingdom to where, we don't die. We live forever. We have spiritual power, where we don't have, the world is at rest. The earth is at rest. But what do our people say? Nah, this is it. you know, the facade, the matrix, so to speak, that they're in. They think this is it, and they're happy with it. All right. Verse 4, in whom the God, see lowercase g, of this world hath blinded the minds of them which believe not. So again, this is that cognitive warfare, that mind control. And who's the God of this world? The wicked, all right? The Edomite, the so-called white man, all right? Headed by who? His elites. The ones that have control over this world, that are pushing this madness, that are pushing out these psyops, all right? The same ones that are telling you that the prophets of the Lord out there on the highways and byways, out there preaching day in and day out, or week in and week out, you know, on the YouTube day in, day out, they're the ones saying that these are bug outs. They're the ones that are saying that we are the prophets of doom. Okay? When in reality, what are we prophesying? We're prophesying the gospel. You know, which with that, yes, comes a destruction, but only if you are a part of this wicked place. Okay? It says, in whom the God of this world hath blinded the minds of them which believe not, lest the light of the glorious gospel of Hamashiach, who is the image of the Most High, should shine unto them. And see, they're so far, you know, gone. All right, they're so far blinded. They have that veil over them that they can't see the truth that we're speaking. All right, but you know, so be it. That's just how the movie goes. That's how the story goes. All right. Now this is Isaiah 47:1. It says, come down and sit in the dust, O virgin daughter of Babylon. Sit on the ground. There is no throne, O daughter of the Chaldeans, for thou shalt no more be called tender and delicate. All right. Who's this virgin daughter of Babylon? This is talking about America. Okay. It says, take the millstones and grind meal, uncover thy locks, make bare the leg, uncover the thigh, pass over the rivers. Thy nakedness shall be uncovered, yea, thy shame shall be seen. I will take vengeance, and I will not meet thee as a man. And you know, the shame is being seen. The atrocities that America has been a part of, you know, by way of the Edomite, but it's specifically what America's done, what it's continued to do, what this government is doing. All right, the things that are involved with. It's funny because more and more, you know, as we approach the end, you see who's really in control. And there's always them small hats over there in the east. All right, why do they have so much sway over here? Why is it that they always have bipartisan support no matter what is going on? Okay, hey, Amalek. All right, it says, as for our Redeemer, the Lord of hosts is his name, the Holy One of Israel, Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. Sit thou silent and get thee into darkness, O daughter of the Chaldeans, for thou shalt no more be called the Lady of Kingdoms. I was wroth with my people. I have polluted mine inheritance and given them into thine hand. Thou didst show them no mercy. It says, upon the ancient hast thou very heavily laid thy yoke. And scriptures say he furthered this affliction. All right. You know, he put pure hell on the north and the south. All right, and there was no mercy shown. You can you can read what this man did. All right, and again, still does to this day. All right, and so what? The Lord is going to take this man out. He's going to destroy this place. It says, and thou saidest, I shall be a lady forever, so thou didst not lay these things to heart, neither didst remember the latter end of it. Therefore, hear now this: thou that art given to pleasures and dwellest carelessly, that sayest in thy heart, I am and none else beside me, I shall not sit as his widow, neither shall I know the loss of children. And this is the pride of America. All right, you know, to be given into all these pleasures, you know, to you know, not have any walls like that, you know, not worried about people coming in and touching this place, not worrying about, you know, being destroyed. All right. It says, what? You shall know the loss of or it says, neither shall I know the loss of children, which is again going into that pride. It says, but these two things shall come to thee in a moment, in one day, the loss of children and widowhood. They shall come upon thee in their perfection, for the multitude of thy sorceries and for the great abundance of thine enchantments. And this is the point. All right. This place is going to be touched and you know, literally ravaged. Okay. Because of what? The multitude of thy sorceries and for the great abundance of thine enchantments. And this is what is heavily being pushed out. Okay? And this is a part of it. All right, this cognitive warfare. This is high level enchantments. All right, this high level sorceries to be able to sway the people's mind. Okay. It says, "For thou hast trusted in thy wickedness, thou hast said, none seeth me. Thy wisdom and thy knowledge, it hath perverted thee. And thou hast said in thy heart, I am, and none else beside me." Yeah, you think because you know this type of witchcraft, you can do these type of things that you can't be touched. The Lord, hey, you altogether thought that the Lord was with thee. Okay, but the Lord is letting you just a stack up this iniquity, so the destruction will be that much greater. It says, "Therefore shall evil come upon thee, thou shalt not know from whence it riseth, and mischief shall fall upon thee, thou shalt not be able to put it off, and desolation shall come upon thee suddenly, which thou shalt not know. Stand now with thine enchantments and with the multitude of thy sorceries, wherein thou hast labored from thy youth. If so be thou shalt be slack. If so be thou shalt be able to profit. If so be thou mayest prevail." Yeah, keep going. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep pushing these enchantments out. Keep going to your witches and your wizards. Keep spirit cooking. All right, because is that gonna let you prevail? All right. Thou art wearied in the multitude of thy counsels. And it's funny because, again, just mention that Seekirk thing, a lot of things are being exposed. Well, even going into the Ukrainian girl on the bus, all right? And he's getting weary because everything's being exposed. It says, "Let now the astrologers, the stargazers, the monthly prognosticators," which again is all these wizards, "stand up and save thee from these things that shall come upon thee. Behold, they shall be as stubble. The fire shall burn them. They shall not deliver themselves from the power of the flame. There shall not be a coal to warm it, nor fire to sit before it." This place is going to be destroyed along with all these witches and warlocks. All right. And the elites, okay, the actual Chaldeans, all right, and the ones who control these Chaldeans, hey, they're going into slavery. All right. It says, "Thus shall they be unto thee with whom thou hast labored, even thy merchants from thy youth. They shall wander everyone to his quarter, none shall save thee." All right, and ultimately, Babylon, the daughter of Babylon the Great, is going to be destroyed. But as we read, the enchantments, the wizards, the prognosticators, they're doing all that. All right, we don't just bring these things out for no reason. This is going on, and it's behind closed doors. But again, this is a form of it. Okay, to see these psyops and hey, this is the council and the think tanks that are being put together at the high levels to be able to control the narrative and control these people's minds to further feed into the chaos. Because again, what's the ultimate goal? The MOTB. All right, and I'll end off on this. 2 Corinthians 2:11. It says, "Lest Satan should get an advantage of us." All right, which Satan is the spiritual, a demon, but who is his physical counterpart? All right, Esau, Edom. Now Satan is set up to be adverse. All right, he's set up to, control that darkness, so to speak. But also you have his physical counterpart, which is in control, Esau, Edom. All right, it says, "Lest Satan should get an advantage of us, for we are not ignorant of his devices." So the elect, okay, are not ignorant of these things. When you see these certain things, you kind of take it with a grain of salt, and then look, more and more things come out. You start seeing different symbols. The spirit starts exposing what's really going on. Okay, and again, what does it all go back to? This is a war. We're in a war to control our minds, ultimately to be blinded. All right, this is what Esau wants. Okay, he wants everybody to be blinded and to think he's God and he has all the answers, but in reality this man is the devil and he's going to be taken out of power. All right, and he can't get the elect. All right, the elect, what does it say? The elect have obtained it and the rest were blinded. All right, and Lord's will we be of that number, and Lord's will the Lord Yahweh Shem Yahushai keeps this spirit of discernment on us so we're able to see these things. All right. Hey, but yeah, Lord's will, this is edifying. Just a quick lesson going into this cognitive warfare and how, we're in this battle, this spiritual battle. And, that's why we have to watch and pray, and like the scriptures say, pray for more wisdom if we lack the discernment to see these things. Because, hey, this is here. This is real. All right, this isn't made up. This isn't conspiracy. This isn't fantasy. All right, these things are happening in real time. Okay, and in that ultimate snare, that trap, he's getting ready to lay it. All right, but again, Lord's will, this is edifying. Once again, I want to give all honor, praises, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai, Bahashim Rachakodash. Double honors to the apostles, bishops, and elders at Great Millstone. Shalom to the elect and above.